Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Sunday Brunch. I'm 72 the Architect, aka Jason B. Today I'm producing live on Clapper and YouTube. So if you want to check me out on both platforms, just look up 72 the Architect, aka Jason B, and you'll be able to find me. So today is Easter Sunday. That's right, a religious holiday for many people out there. That means it is the day of resurrection for Christians and Orthodox, and it's also a day. It's also considered a Passover for the Hebrew and Jewish community. So we're going to talk about. It's also a sense of time of renewal and growth. So that's what we're here to talk about. Be right back here in just a second as we get started. Let's get going. All right, everybody. So it is Easter Sunday. It is bright and beautiful out here in Stockton, California. And it's one of those days to really appreciate brand new growth. We have definitely seen interesting times in winter, whether it be actual weather or metaphysical weather in our minds and our hearts and all that things, all those great things. So it's also a representation of spring. Yeah, it's not the official date of spring, but more or less on Easter Sunday, we see lots of beautiful growth in many different parts of the world, and I'm definitely appreciative about that. You know, I was very much raised Catholic and Christian at the same time. My mom being a Methodist and my dad being a Catholic. Don't ask me how it worked, but it did. Anyway, so from what I remember growing up, Easter was all about remembering that Jesus Christ or Yahshua had risen from the grave after being persecuted and crucified on Friday, which they call Good Friday. But it represents a little bit more to me. And since I'm really not a practitioner of Christianity so much, I still respect it. I respect the traditions. I respect that it's a day of rest. It's a time to get together with family. It's a time to think about what the perspectives are of now and how to leave past of things that don't serve you, don't work with you, and don't grow. And I love involving stoicism in all of my talks in one shape or another of a form. So today's question from the Daily Stoic simply asks this: can I step back and test my impressions? What would I find if I did? That's the Stoic question of the day. Now, Epictetus from his Ashrodian 1.5 says, from the very beginning, make it a practice to say every harsh impression. You are an impression and not at all what you appear to be. Next, examine and test by the rules that you possess the first and the greatest of which is this: whether this belongs to you and in your control, or not in your control. And if the latter be prepared to respond, if no, it is nothing to me. That's right. So we have heard many different things come across all kinds of parts of our attention, right? Um, Yesterday I came on and I talked on Clapper, and my question was, how can you, or what bad assumptions, habits, and advice have you accepted or adopted into your life? And today is more about, can I step back and realize that maybe some of the decisions that I've made don't necessarily belong, and how can I create brand new growth in for where I'm at? That's right. It's a very big thing. Now, as many of you prepare to either go to church or maybe get together with family, maybe barbecue, go to a restaurant, go to a park, see the kids, the girls in dresses. I mean, I'm a father of three daughters, and I can say usually on this day, I would share, I've shared custody and with two of my daughters, and I can say dressing them up, getting them ready for church, and their excitement is When can we go on the Easter egg hunt? Or what did I get from the Easter bunny? And for them, it's kind of like, hey, just I didn't have to do anything, but I get something. But I'd always like to leave an impression and say that there is more than just what you receive, but what you also give is much, much more. And that means giving away what things that don't belong to you, right? We got to think about on Sunday, it's a day of rest. They call it the Sabbath for some. And on that day of rest, it means that you're not supposed to really do any work. According to the Jewish culture, they don't do any work on the Sabbath day. They believe in rest, they believe in taking care of things later. But you know what? It's God's day. It's your day to rejuvenate. Now think about what how much that really means to you. On most people's weekends, they want to get to all the things at home or do the things that they really interest them, that they're into. And when you really think about it, it's like, wait a second, I have all this 2 days to do in and to pack in what I want to do or have to serve my family. And usually every single weekend, that's exactly what I do. I have time to serve my family. I think about, what can I do? Do I need to go grocery shopping? Do I need to take care of loose ends, fix the yard, set up things, have a great meal, all that good stuff. It's like sometimes work, but I kind of respect the people. A lot of times, what I've learned from my Jewish friends of, not to take things too harshly, but to release and let go. And so here it is, Easter. And I ask myself, what do I forgive? And how can I invite, more prosperity into my life and hold less onto things that don't truly matter, right? And that goes to the question of, how can I realize my decisions can be working for me if I take more patience and time? If you give yourself a little bit of grace and give yourself some wiggle room, some grow room, right? You think about all these beautiful things that you could possibly have and the potentials, but then reality sets in and you realize I've got to do hard work. But it's not always hard work. Sometimes on that day of rest, that personal reflection time is probably the best time to start your strategies and realize all the abundance and things that you have. Sometimes it seems like you don't have very much. I can remember when I was a kid and my mom would sometimes struggle on Easter Sunday just to pack one little, sometimes a tiny bunny and a few peeps and some jelly beans and no really toys, but it was just like morsels of sweets and goods, and that would be our thing. Now, most of the time, the chocolate bunny, he went to waste, right? At least, or he would be melted down and made into some other goodie in our household. That's right, even the cheap chocolate bunnies that we would get, those little, tall boxes, it would be melted down because most of us kids, we didn't want to eat the chocolate. I don't know. I was never a big fan of chocolate anyway. But I think about, well, where did the whole concept of Easter really come to? Or how did it come to, not just in a religious principle, you know? And how do we get bunnies and peeps and all that good stuff, you know, for our kids? And why is today such an important day to relieve and let go of different stressors and impressions and things like that? So, as I was writing a little bit out of the show, I was like, okay, let me get through the intro. Let me write my good YouTube intro. And I was like, welcome back to Sunday Brunch. Today's blah blah blah. And then there it was, acknowledging that religions are a process. They are sometimes a standard in which we show how we believe and what we practice in our beliefs, right? So then I thought about, well, maybe it's also an opportunity to focus on personal growth. If at all times you should not be working so hard today, but how are you looking at your personal growth? Let's take time to plant new ventures and weed out the things that no longer serve us. Yeah, and work towards more of a fulfilling life, right? We a lot of times we think this on New Year's Eve, like, yeah, when the new year comes, I'll be able to plant new seeds and let go part of my past life. But the habits, just like I was talking about yesterday, habits, they come a trailing. Excuse me. Mm, mm. Anyhow, so when I thought about, potential growth, and weeding out what doesn't belong. What transgressions do you hold close to you? What transgressions and what ill wills have you held, and how have you been offended? How maybe your stature in life is not going forward as maybe you want, but maybe the key is just to let go. That's right, letting go. I think it's a very big deal in the long run. I have come across a lot of things in my life, things I could be angry. Like this week, I went to court for my 15-year-old, and it was a little difficult to go across or come across some of the decisions that I had to deal with, but yet still remain patient, remain vigilant, understanding, do not hold grudges. Excuse me. Let me drink some water. Pardon me. But that's the thing. And this is what I really love about Stoicism. When I was reading Epictetus's quote, he was like, take a moment to respond through patience. Maybe the delay could be the number one thing that could be the indifference, right? The number one thing that could make a lot of decision making for the future go better. And what I love about, Easter, it also was a reminder of spring, a springtime. You get to plant new things. You get to see growth later on. The winter months are supposedly ending, but we've had some significant rain and different weather fronts coming in here in California. But that doesn't change anything. The metaphor, the growth inside you. That's right, the growth inside you. Your principles, what you're gonna grow with, what you're gonna, you know, go forward with. What harvest and what fruits of your labor are you gonna bring to the table? Or are you bringing the fruits and labors of your pains and your anguish, the weeds? Even weeds do have a purpose, but there is a time. That's right, there is a time to weed out, to dig out, let go, and not keep what doesn't belong to you. Think about, maybe someone offended you yesterday. Maybe someone did something to you for a long term, and you choose not to enjoy your day. But I encourage this day. How are you going to approach this particular day? In appreciation. That's right, appreciation. I think about all my three wonderful daughters, Alina, Annabella, and Valentina. I love you so much. And no matter what is going on, however we gather or not gather, you are warm within my hearts. No matter what has been done or transpired or transgressed, I have nothing but love and forgiveness. I hold no ill will, right? And many people should be thinking that. But that key word should, which I don't really like, is a notification. It's like, okay, if I say should, maybe I should take the time to eliminate what doesn't belong and put in place what would be strongly suggested. So, excuse me, I'm still recovering from a little bit of a walking pneumonia. So I found that out this week that, you know, unfortunately, you got to take care of your body. And that's right. Be careful. Don't always tough things out. Take that time to rest the body. And trust me, if you don't, your body will say, hello, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to do anything. And I don't care about your plans, right? When your body basically tells you, it says, hey, we need to stop and stop going forward just for a minute. And if you do this, we'll get better. But your mind is like the stubborn little engine that could. I think I can. I think I can. I know I can. It's just nothing big. It's just a cough, right? Just something minor. But it's also a symbolism. Take time to rest, receive, recess, reevaluate. Look at what actually works, what doesn't work, right? Like I was listening to a couple of colleagues last night, and they were happen to be talking about, how they were offended by this person and that person. And I asked them, did they make you money or they cost you money? No? Okay. Now, how much time have you been ranting about this particular person or these people? Well, for a while. Okay, so now you're paying rent in their minds, right? And I'm like, you could be spending time with your family. You could be spending time with good people, laughs, jokes. You know what I'm saying? Things that can actually bring fulfillment to you. Think about what that means to you. Finding fulfillment in little ways instead of having to look for a grandiose way where everything is perfect. That's right. Even for your own happiness, you're going to constantly be weeding out, even when you're just trying to sit and breathe. Sometimes those little thoughts that interrupt, or a phone call, a message, an inconvenience interruption, it doesn't have to sink in. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't have to sink in. But what you can do is saying, you know what, there's an appropriate time. I will address this thing. A lot of times, in the last couple of months, I've had to bite my own tongue, take my own medicine. That's right, my own medicine that I would preach, just by not reacting, not giving people the satisfaction. Doesn't mean that I'm not standing up for myself, but I'm choosing my battles eloquently and purposefully. And sometimes there's no battle at all. I just walk on. See, when people are angry and they haven't let go, you can tell what's on their face. You can see what's in their mind. You can see what's in their voice. They'll go over it on and on and on and retell the story as if it were fresh as it happened yesterday. I've seen people tell tragedies that have happened 10, 20, and even 50 years ago that still lives in their minds today. But so today, Easter Sunday happens to be a day of a reminder, the resurrection, that you can grow from the ashes and the weeds and the things that you've stumbled on for so long, your offense, your hurt, your traumas. You too can rise above. If you'd like to use Jesus Christ as an example, I would encourage it. Sure. He would tell you basically there is nothing worth on this world of your experience to hold on to forever. You know, he would say that my father's palace or my father's kingdom has room for all. But all you have to do is just love, not just to so much swear to allegiance. I mean, I remember the stories when Jesus Christ was forgive them for they may not know what's going on, right? They don't know. You don't know until you're put into another's shoes. Would you judge the same? And that's where I appreciate the metaphors. Even though I'm not a full practicing Christian, I still believe in spirituality. I still believe in the kindness of the human spirit. I still believe in potential that no matter where you have come from, whatever you have done, you can still reinvent what you are. You can reestablish a reputation. You can change your thought process. You don't have to react just because you come from a certain environment or act a certain way because that's always the way you've done. When you implement brand new things and even new habits, new beliefs, a lot of times what's going to happen is those around you will not more than likely accept your new behavioral patterns or your acceptance. It will take them some time because it's also an evaluation of what they do, how they believe, and how they practice themselves. But consistency over and over, practice over and over, brand new growth comes slowly. If you ever notice that you plant something, if you have never planted anything in your life, try planting a bean in some fertile soil and mark the days before you first start to see a sprout above the ground. Takes much more time than you possibly might realize. And while that bean that begins to present or grow a vine, a sprout to come out of the ground, it eventually starts to bloom and grows to the surface. It needs sun, it needs water, it needs nurturing. Think about your own personal soul, your own personal Maya. How do you nurture your mindset? How do you nurture your beliefs? I use stoicism and different intellectual ideas and philosophies from around the world to coordinate and help me make myself better. I don't have it perfect. I'm not a model citizen. I'm not the model dad, but I'll tell you what, I'm a good guy who cares. I care about things that truly do matter. And yeah, sometimes I get hung up on, some gossip here and there, or maybe my own thoughts and feelings you know? And there are times your feelings are lying to you. There may be false impressions, but giving yourself time, grace. It's like I've said this before, one of the most amazing lessons that I had from my nephew Joe last summer. We happened to be talking, sitting next to each other, and my nephew wants to grow his, he wants to get into real estate, and I want to encourage him. And for a guy who's really quiet and talks very humbly, he said something that my brother had taught him. He says, "Just remember, Tio, patience over profits." And I said, "Who taught you that?" And Joe goes, "Well, my dad did." And I really do look at my younger brother and all the things that he's been through. And yeah, I mean, a lot of it is his own choice. A lot of times, going through that stuff that he went through, going through as his type of business, going through the woes, the whims, the setbacks, he still was patient to believe in what he does and the products that he produces for his own business. And, when you come from, a lesser and you have an opportunity and chance to, you get a big sum of money and you wanna spend on things, but you gotta think about, "Wait a second, if I spend what I have little of now, what will I have later?" And sometimes there's no need to spend. There's the shiny things. Think about that as a metaphor. What if you wanted forgiveness? What if you wanted to be able to talk to that long lost friend or a brother you haven't seen in like 10 years or something? Think about, the things that separated you. It was all something in the mind, an inconvenience, principles, a temporary offense. And there are some pretty serious offenses, but see, the day of for me, forgiveness is much more for you, letting it go and not letting it bother you. See, the only way that someone can really get to you is by your choice. The moment you choose to react and not be patient with yourself, because people will not be patient with you. But if you control your word, your word, what comes out of your mouth, what you see, how you process what you see, how you hear, seems like common sense, right? But we forget those common sense things. We negate and give reason to say, well, I need to be offended. I need retribution or maybe even revenge. And Jesus Christ and so many other theologians and theological people in different religions say that holding on to transgressions is the most toxic thing you can ever do to your body, right? That's right. Now think about, as you go forward this next week, what would you like to plant in good growth? What would you like to harvest maybe in 3 months? I had a strong impression on a friend of mine, uh, 2 weeks ago who owned their own business, and they asked me, "You know what? I would love to be able to save more, but I never can get a break." And I said to him, "You know what? Maybe the key to your issue is your belief in what you say and what you understand. Here's what you do." I said, "Why don't you take every time you make money off of one of your accounts, I want you to take exactly 10% of whatever that was, and you set it aside. You don't touch it, you put it in an account." Talk to that friend, and here 2 weeks later, they were so excited to me to report, "You know what? Hey, I have something. And I have more than I thought I would." I was so excited, and I said, "Keep up the momentum, and just remember, there will be things to interrupt your savings. There will be things to tempt and seem like this is demand and a need. But the long as you hold patience and be true to believing that I will hold on to this to such a time where my purse will be worth me and my attention, and not me willing to spend and exchange so easily." It means much more than just having money. It means, you know what? I can choose my happiness. I can choose my resourcefulness. I can choose the pace in which things come. And, they were wondering, well, where did you get this knowledge from? And I said, the one greatest thing that I ever got as a kid was learning how to read. My mom, she used to read to us as kids, and when we didn't have a television in the, those early '80s, and when we did, it was like, what, a 13-inch black and white television? Yeah, 13-inch. Can you imagine that? I mean, 13 inches doesn't seem like a lot, but to 3 kids who didn't really have much and a single mom, a black and white television with some rabbit ears antennas was kind of a big deal. So we held on to those things, but the stories that my mom would read from Jules Verne, from 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and Around the World in 80 Days. That's right. Or even J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, things that were way above our conscious level. But the way that my mom would read to us, the way that we would have an impression and have stories in our minds, creativity, began to plant the seeds of my own imagination to understand the books that I would read later in my life. So I read and I got some of these principles. Matter of fact, um, this book that I really appreciate, The Richest Man in Babylon, by George S. Clason. This I bought it for $12.99. But throughout this book, I can tell you there is plenty of notes. And a matter of fact, I even show you, like, as you see in this book, you can see that I have highlighted notations, um, even underlines. That's right, underline things that were valuable. Like on this chapter, the fifth cure, make of thy dwelling profitable investment. And I would put things that were really, really potentially important. So you got to think about, hey, what really matters? How can you encourage others? It's using your mind, using your own discernment, letting things not escalate by you deciding what truly matters. And that's really the sum of the show. So as you go forward through this Sunday, look at your family, step back and just look and admire. And no matter what's taking place, look at them and appreciate them. Smile. And if you don't have a family, appreciate everything that you can have in life. It's not what you want, but what you already possess. Your mind, your thoughts, your words, and your actions. You choose all those things. So, again, the question of the day is, can you step back and test your impressions? And what would you find if you do? Right? Think about that. So maybe your initial impression, test it out. Just don't keep going forward, and assuming that it works or it doesn't work. Test it out. Maybe it needs some follow up. Maybe it just needs some breathing room, grow room, like any plant or any vegetable. It takes time before it has its value. Anyhow, well, that's all the time that I have for Sunday Bunch Rise and Grind. I just want to thank you all for coming out and listening to me live on Clapper. That's right. Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'll be back to, making my Rise and Grind. And tomorrow we are going to be talking about your judgments. Part of this week about the Daily Stoic is about unbiased thoughts. So starting tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about, your judgments. And tune in at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I will be live here on Clapper and probably YouTube. So if you want to subscribe and like and send me a message, let me know what you think. You can find me on YouTube at 72 the Architect, all one word. And that's pretty much it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for coming out. We'll see y'all next time. Take care.